Hi, it's me, Barb. Thanks for coming to share a few laughs with me here at Aging as a Farce. Now, this story is a little bit artsy and a tiny bit racy. And here's what happened. I went looking for an art event and ended up at a swingers club. Just for context, after living in one part of the country for most of my life, my husband and I moved to an entirely new state during the Great Plague of 2020. Between the exhaustion of moving and all the shutdowns, I'd never gotten back into pursuing my favorite activities, especially anything involving art. You name it, classes, shows, exhibits. I'd been in a real art slump for long enough, so I Googled art events near me, and I got a hit immediately on something called Art Club. The explanation was, come try new mediums, get creative, meet new friends, enjoy our craft cocktails. And it was happening in 5 days. What luck! It was exactly what I was looking for. I had no idea what that night's medium would be: pottery, watercolors. Maybe we'd be flinging oil paints around like Jackson Pollock. So Wednesday night comes around, and I'm excited to put on my artsiest outfit. I had this black boho top that was trimmed in red, and I wore chunky red jewelry and headed on downtown. Man, I thought I was cool. And just to protect this outfit, I packed a clean, color coordinated apron. The place was an old, cozy tavern type place with a long wooden bar and mirrored shelves filled with liquor. As I walked in, I noticed a half dozen people milling around at one end of the bar. One of them, a woman, asked me if I was there for the 35 and up club. Confused, I said, I thought this was a meeting for art club. And she said coolly, yes, that meets here too. And with that, just turned her back to me. Okay, well, thanks a lot. Only one problem with art club. There were no easels, no paints, no brushes, and no one looked remotely in charge. So I ordered a drink, and while waiting, I noticed a couple studying some objects hanging off this colorful display at the far end of the bar. I wasn't wearing my glasses, so I peered and I squinted, and I'm thinking, oh, that must be the art supplies. Then reality came into focus. They were admiring whips and ropes and chains, and I froze. As I stared at my own now Picasso-esque reflection in the bar mirror, I noticed what was hanging on the wall behind me. About 2 dozen framed photographs of women in bondage posing with men who looked absolutely delighted to be there with her. Okay, Barb, I'm thinking play it cool and finish your drink and make a quiet exit. And that wouldn't have been very difficult because no one seemed to notice that I was even there. I sat down at one of the front tables as I watched 35s and up continue to stream in. The same aloof woman happened to be standing nearby, so I asked her again if she knew anything about this art club, and she pointed to the two young people I had just sat down next to. There's your art club. I looked over. Two 20-somethings, armed with safety scissors, were cutting pictures out of old magazines and gluing them onto construction paper with glue sticks. I packed an apron for this. The second they realized I was actually there for their art club, they apologized for not introducing themselves sooner. They explained that when held in this locale, the art was primarily collage projects, as the place was too small to accommodate much else. So I dove right in. I was gluing up a surreal image that matched my surreal emotions. These two were very charming and friendly, and best of all, they got my warped sense of humor. And finally, I had the nerve to ask them what I'd been dying to know. So are they all here for what I think they're here for? And that killed them. The two of them lost it. Nothing like a confused old lady wandering into the wrong event. They confirmed that the 35 and up club was what our generation calls swingers. I don't know what they're called now. Normal people? I don't know. What had been throwing me off the whole time, though, was none of them seemed to care about looking, alluring. Don't get me wrong, they look perfectly fine for going to Home Depot to buy chains and rope. But in the market for new experiences to add to their sexual resumes, not so much. I couldn't help myself. I said to them, I know this sounds all judgy, and I guess Hollywood orgies have skewed my perception, but does that group look like people who would have a lot of luck in the orgy department? Thank goodness my snarky pettiness was validated when one of them said, You're just saying what most people would think. I think that was a very nice moment of shared judgment across generations. You don't get that all the time. For the next couple of hours, we three glued and laughed and cut and joked, and I'm happy to report we're now very friendly and have gone on to much more conventional studio art projects in a conventional studio. So in the end, I did experience what I came for. On the drive home, though, I had to laugh at myself because when I first realized what that 35 and up club was about, I was worried that I was going to have to dodge awkward advances. Fat chance. Not one person from the 35 and up club even made contact with me, eye contact. I spent the evening making collage instead of becoming part of one. But I mean, come on now. My outfit, the makeup, the jewelry, the effort I went to, and little did any of them know that I was probably the only one in the entire place to bring a clean apron, which would have come in handy, thank you very much. So I hope you thought that was a pretty funny story. And if any of you ever came close to accidentally walking to a swingers club, let me know. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.